The horrific murder of an alleged Durban drug kingpin and the ensuing retribution, where two suspects were beheaded by angry community members, is an act of extreme vigilantism. Of that there is absolutely no doubt. But the key question is why this happened, and with such ferocity. Someone who might have an answer to that is Dr. Guy Lamb from the University of Cape Town. He heads the Safety and Violence Initiative. Dr. Lamb, good afternoon to you and welcome. Should we be shocked at the level of anger and violence displayed by this community, or is this something that we've come to expect?
Well, of course we should be shocked, but this is something that's not new. We've certainly witnessed vigilante violence going back, predating certainly the 1994 period. We saw it under apartheid when supposedly police informers or those working with the apartheid state or deemed to work with the apartheid state were the victims of vigilante violence. We've seen it continuing over the 1990s, 2000s. So we see these extreme forms of violence happening, and unfortunately it's not something that is a unique occurrence. It happens fairly regularly, unfortunately.
You make the point that this is driven entirely by anger and emotion, and it's not necessarily an act that is calculated.
No, in this particular case, and in many vigilante cases, it's around, usually there are risk factors of the sort of violence happening in specific communities. It's typically communities where relations between the police and residents isn't particularly good. There's also tends to be cases where conflicts and between people and between groups are resolved violently. And in these particular cases, there have been increasing tensions and between particular groups, and you see this spilling over. We see it happening in cases where a driver knocks over a child and potentially injures a child or kills a child, and then we see mob justice as a result of that. So yeah, typically these things happen fairly quickly, fairly rapidly, and often are related to kind of emotions and anger that spill over into these particular contexts.
So given that there is heightened community anger, particularly in that Shallcross area, that police are perhaps, they don't have the trust of the community, they themselves might be afraid to act, is it at all possible to dial things back?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we've seen the clear indication in the Shallcross, in this particular incident, was certain residents using handguns and firing on the police, and there's been a history to this. And of course, it's about really about station commissioner, cluster commanders, engaging with community groups and residents, having meaningful conversations with them, finding out what is driving concerns within the community, how can these concerns be addressed. But an issue, I think, in this particular community and others is that certain individuals who are associated with the criminal underworld are providing welfare and benefits to residents, and certainly welfare and benefits that they aren't able to access through the state. So this is, one of the particular issues here is where why there was so much anger is because the individual in question was providing quite a bit of welfare to individuals surrounding him and his community and extended family, and was seen as a source to go to when you needed support. So it is about not only about the police, but it's also about the state, in the sense of people need to feel that they trust the state. And I think in these kind of contexts, people feel that they've been left behind.
In order to start that process, though, of engagement, it would be difficult, surely, to seed any sort of community conversation. Who does that?
Well, it really comes down to police management. I mean, let's use a similar example here. So in Khayelitsha, we had a commission of inquiry in sort of from 2012, 2013, 2014 onwards, and the relationship between the community and police had broken down, and we had more than 80 incidences of vigilante violence happening there. So there was a commission of inquiry, and that commission of inquiry then led to conversations between new station management, new cluster management coming in, and a series of MBs and structured processes happening within the Khayelitsha cluster that actually led to improved relationships between the police and community, and actually building of trust. But you have to keep maintaining that, and that process hasn't really been maintained. But I think in the case of Shallcross, I think it's about looking at these mini commissions of inquiry, looking at where are the challenges in the relationship between police and community members, and how can these relationships be repaired, and ultimately about coming to an understanding about what residents can expect from the police, and also the police behaving in very professional ways, because there have been cases around this particular incident where there's been allegations of police corruption, where allegations that police have been accepting bribes. So many community members feel that they can't trust the police.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Guy Lamb from the University of Cape Town.